Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for all of the support that you showed me on my last video. It really means a lot to me. Today, I'm going to be working on my new official base. I did record a last video for this, but I totally forgot to save the file. So, today I'm going to be reading some more scary stories and working on my base. Anyways, let's get to it. This first story is called I Found a Door in My Apartment That Wasn't There Yesterday. It's from r/horror stories by an author called Linus287. I've lived in apartment 6B for 4 years. It's not a large place. One bedroom, one bathroom, a narrow kitchen, and a living room with the windows that looks out over the back alley. I know every crack in the paint, every sound the pipes make at night, every place where the floorboards complain when you step on them. That is why I noticed the door immediately. It was in the hallway between my bedroom and the bathroom, where there had always been a blank wall. A white wooden door. Plain, old, perfectly ordinary. Except it had not been there the night before. At first, I thought I was still dreaming. I stood in the hallway with my t-shirt and sweatpants, holding a mug of coffee I could not remember pouring, staring at the brass doorknob. There was no frame damage, no dust, no smell of fresh paint. It looked like it had always belonged there. I touched the wall around it. Solid. I touched the door. Cold. Not cool like wood in the morning, but cold like something kept underground. I called my landlord. Very funny, he said. I'm not joking. There was a pause. What kind of door? What do you mean, what kind of door? A normal door. Another pause. Don't open it. I almost laughed, but his voice stopped me. He didn't sound annoyed. He sounded afraid. Mr. Keller, I said slowly, why would there be a door in my hallway? I'll come over, he said. Don't open it. Don't touch it again. Then he hung up. I stood there for a long time looking at the door. The apartment was silent, too silent. Usually, I could hear traffic from the street, my neighbor's TV, the old radiator clicking. But in that moment, everything had gone quiet, as if the whole building were holding its breath. Then someone knocked from the other side. 3 slow knocks. I'm sorry, guys. I'm seeing a pattern here with 3 slow knocks. Remember from the last video? Anyways, let's continue. I dropped my coffee. It shattered on the floor, hot liquid spreading around my bare feet. The knocks came again. 3 times, not loud, not desperate, polite, like someone waiting to be invited in. I backed away into the living room and grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron pan from the kitchen. Then I waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. The door stood there, white and still. At 9:17, my landlord arrived. He was usually a cheerful man, round face, red cheeks, always smelling faintly of cigarette smoke and peppermint gum. That morning, he looked 20 years older. He pushed past me without saying hello and stopped in the hallway. When he saw the door, all the color left in his face. No, he whispered. You know what this is? He didn't answer. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring of keys. His hands were shaking so badly that the keys jingled like tiny bells. Uh, what are you doing? I asked, locking it. From this side? He ignored me and tried key after key in the brass lock. None fit. Then the knocking started again. 3 slow knocks. Mr. Keller froze. A voice came from behind the door. Soft. Female. Martin? My landlord stepped back as if he had been slapped. Martin, the voice repeated. I know you're there. I looked at him. Who is that? His mouth opened, but no words came out. The voice behind the door sighed. It was a sad sound, almost human. Martin, please, it's so dark. My landlord grabbed my arm hard enough for it to hurt. You need to leave, he said. What? Now, pack a bag, stay somewhere else. Are you insane? What is behind that door? He looked at me then. He looked at me then, and I understood something. Something horrible. He didn't know. Not exactly. Before I could ask anything else, the doorknob turned. Very slowly. Left. Right. Left again. Mr. Keller whispered something in German. I didn't understand and pulled me towards the front door. That was when the voice changed. It became my mother's. Daniel. I stopped moving. My mother died when I was 16. Cancer took her, slowly. Then all at once. I'd forgotten many things about her over the years, but not her voice. Never her voice. Daniel, she said again from behind the door. Honey, please help me. My landlord tightened his grip. Do not listen. I couldn't breathe. Mum? The door creaked. Just a little. A thin black line appeared between the door and the frame. From inside came a smell I remembered instantly. Lavender soap. Hospital sheets. Rain on the first day of a funeral. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. Daniel, my mother whispered. I've waited so long. I pulled away from Mr. Keller. He slapped me, hard. The sound cracked through the apartment. I stumbled back, stunned. Listen to me, he hissed. That is not your mother. The door opened another inch. Behind it, there was no room, no closet, no hallway, only darkness. Not the kind of darkness you see when the lights are off. This was thicker, deeper. It seemed to move slightly like black water. And from inside it, my mother began to cry. I hated my landlord in that moment. I hated him because part of me knew he was right. And I hated him more because another part of me still wanted to open that door. He dragged me out of the apartment. The second we crossed the threshold into the stairwell, all the sound came rushing back. Cars outside, someone coughing below us, a dog barking in another unit. Normal life. Behind that apartment door, something slammed. Once. Twice. Then came my mother's voice, muffled now, but screaming. Daniel! Don't leave me again! I spent that night in a hotel. Mr. Keller refused to explain everything. He only told me that apartment 6B had been renovated in 1998 after a fire. 3 people had died in the building before the fire department arrived. One of them was his wife. Her name had been Anna. The next morning, he called the priest, then a locksmith, then 2 men I had never seen before who arrived in a van with no company name on it. They went into my apartment together. Only one of them came back out. The priest was pale and shaking. The locksmith had blood on his shirt. Mr. Keller wouldn't let me look. What happened? I asked. The locksmith pushed past me and left without his tools. Mr. Keller handed me an envelope. Inside was cash, a lot of it. Move, he said. What about my things? Leave them. Are you serious? He finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. The door is gone, he said, but now there's a window. I didn't want to go back. Not for my clothes, not for my laptop, not for the box of photographs under my bed. I found another apartment across town. I changed my number. I tried to forget the whole thing. For a while, I almost did. Until tonight. At 2:13 in the morning, I woke to the sound of knocking. 3 slow knocks. Not from my front door, not from the hallway, from behind my bedroom wall. Then my mother's voice whispered, Daniel, I found another way in. Oh my god, guys. I got major chills from that one. That freaked me the hell out. I need answers. What happened in the end? Like, is he okay? Is Daniel okay? And what did Mr. Keller know? Why didn't he want to explain it all? Or was that answered already? I can't remember. This next story is called Every Time I Take a Shower, I Hear a Noise in My Apartment, and They're Getting Closer. This is from r/no sleep by an author called Hypnocast. I keep hearing crazy things in my shower, and I think I'm starting to go crazy. For some context, I live in a tiny, rundown apartment building. Strange noises are just part of the experience. The floors creak for no reason, the walls pop whenever the temperature changes, and every winter the pipes scream like someone's dragging furniture through them at 3 in the morning. After a while, you stop questioning it. That's why I ignored it the first time. I was in the shower, the warm water relaxing my muscles after a long day of work, when, through the hiss of the shower head, I heard a noise. The long creak of a metal on metal. It sounded exactly like my front door opening. I froze. Maybe one of the neighbors had come home. The walls were thin here, thin enough that I could usually tell when someone walked into one of the neighboring flats. Then I heard another strange sound, a slow pitter-patter of what sounded like bare feet. They were slow and methodical. Shutting off the water, I called out, Hello? Nothing. Not a footstep, not a creak, not even the settling groan of the building. Feeling a little ridiculous, I stepped out and wrapped a towel around myself. If someone really had come in, I wasn't about to stay in the shower. I dried off as quickly as I could, pulled on a pair of sweats and a t-shirt, and cautiously made my way into the apartment. It was empty. I checked out the living room first, half expecting to see the intruder sitting on my couch. The kitchen was empty, and so too was the bedroom. I even looked in places that wouldn't even make much sense. Under the bed, in the closet. I even checked the bathroom again. The place was completely empty. It was the same story, with the front door. The deadbolt was in place, the chain kept tight. There was absolutely no way anyone could have gotten in. I stood there for a second, staring at it. If someone had come in, they certainly hadn't left through the door. I was about to chalk the whole thing up to the building's terrible acoustics when something caught my eye. A little ceramic bowl on the entryway table was sitting on the floor, just resting on its side against the wall. I frowned for a second before picking it up and putting it back where it belonged, on the coffee table, where it usually held my keys. The bowl had been there since I moved in, beige, chipped around the rim, ugly enough that I never bothered using it, but not ugly enough to throw it away. I figured the previous tenant had forgotten it. Guess the ghost came back for its bowl, I muttered to myself. I smiled, though looking back I wish I'd taken that joke a little bit more seriously. I checked the windows next. Every one of them was shut. the cheap little latches still in place. There wasn't a scratch on the frames. Eventually, I just laughed, more out of embarrassment than anything. I'd worked a 10-hour shift, skipped lunch, and jumped straight into a hot shower the second I got home. I was tired. The building was old, the walls were paper thin. Running water did weird things to sound. I'd probably heard one of my neighbors come home, and my brain just filled in the blanks. The explanation made enough sense that I'd forgotten about it until the next night. The routine was the same: get home, throw my keys and bag onto the couch, and go straight into the shower. After letting the water warm up, I stepped in, letting the heat soothe my aching arms and legs. For a few glorious minutes, it was nice and peaceful, until a familiar sound broke the silence: the slow groan of metal. My front door. I closed my eyes and sighed. Nope, I'm not going out there. Maybe I hoped that whatever was out there had heard me. A second later came the footsteps, faster this time, moving from the front door into the kitchen area. One step, then another, then another. I don't know why, but I reached for the faucet and shut the stream of water off. The moment I did so, silence. No fading sounds, no retreating footsteps, just nothing. I waited. 30 seconds stretched into a minute, which stretched into 5. I stepped out, dried myself off, got dressed, and then proceeded to search every nook and cranny of my apartment. Empty. Everything was exactly as I left it. Except for the bowl. It sat in the middle of the hallway now, several feet from where its home on the coffee table was. I really need more sleep, I muttered to myself. I picked up the bowl and put it back on the table. Ironically, I barely slept at all that night. I could rationalize the sound of the front door opening or the footsteps, but there was no explanation for the bowl. Nothing I came up with was convincing enough to explain how it had ended up in the hallway. By morning, though, I almost talked myself out of it. Maybe I kicked it without noticing. Maybe I moved it while cleaning days earlier and thought it had always been by the door. Memory is weird like that. Even so, something about the whole thing kept nagging at me. Not enough to make me think my apartment was haunted, but enough that I wanted to prove myself right. So after work that evening, I decided to run a little experiment. I went into the bathroom, turned on the tap full force, and I left. I hid in my bedroom, hoping that whatever might be invading would show itself. I waited. 1 minute, 2, 3, nothing. No creaking metal, no footsteps, no doors opening. Just the sound of water hitting porcelain. See? You're just fucking crazy, I told myself. I felt ridiculous for even entertaining the idea that something was wrong. Smiling to myself, I reached into the bathroom and shut the water off. That little experiment settled everything in my mind. The experiment should have settled everything. It didn't. The next day, I stayed late at work finishing paperwork I'd been putting off all week. By the time I clocked out, I was already 20 minutes late for a date. I'd been looking forward to it all week. The last thing I wanted was to be standing in my bathroom wondering if my apartment had developed a personality. I threw my bag onto the couch, peeled off my work clothes, and jumped into the shower. I didn't even think about the experiment. Not until I heard it. The front door, the slow groan of metal, then the footsteps, bare feet. One after another. I swore under my breath. Not tonight. I reached over and shut off the water. Silence. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter, making me jump. Against every instinct telling me not to look away, I turned and grabbed it. Running late? Everything okay? It couldn't have taken more than 2 seconds to read the message. I quickly typed out, "Sorry, be there soon," and slipped my phone back onto the counter. When I looked up, the bathroom door had opened. It wasn't wide, maybe 3 or 4 inches, but I knew it hadn't been like that before. I stared at the narrow gap, trying to convince myself I'd simply forgotten to close it all the way. My apartment was old. The hinges weren't even, doors drifted sometimes. Didn't they? The hallway beyond was still lit by the lamp in my living room. I remember staring at that silver of warm light, waiting for, I don't know, for the front door to move again, maybe? Instead, something shifted just beyond the crack. It was only a flicker of movement, pale, thin, and gone before I could focus on it. Then I heard the unmistakable snap of a switch. Click. The hallway light went out, and darkness swallowed the gap beneath the door. For a moment, all I could hear was the steady hiss of the shower. My hand found the faucet almost on instinct, and I twisted it shut. Silence. The bathroom door was closed again. The rest of the night almost felt normal. My date noticed I was quiet, but I blamed it on work. He didn't push. We ended up going back to his place after dinner, something I probably would have been excited about any other night. I tried not to think about my apartment, about the bathroom, about the door. Eventually, I fell asleep there, fully dressed, curled on the edge of his bed. He scrolled something on his phone beside me. At some point, he turned the lamp off. I remember thinking I should get up, go home, and sleep in my own bed. I couldn't bring myself to face another night in that place. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was already cutting through the blinds. For a few seconds, everything felt normal until I remembered where I was. My phone was dead on the floor beside the bed. My date was still asleep, breathing slow and steady beside me. I sat up carefully, trying not to wake him, trying to piece together the night before. For a moment, I almost convinced myself everything that had happened in my apartment was just stress, lack of sleep, a bad week. Then I saw it, an object on the nightstand beside the bed, a small ceramic bowl, beige, chipped along the rim, resting perfectly upright in the morning light. Ooh, guys. So, whatever it isn't limited to her apartment. It is following her around everywhere. She's not safe in her apartment and she's not safe in his apartment. And now that it's followed her into his apartment, is he going to get the same issues as well? I'm left with more questions than answers. This next story is called Never Wave at the Statue in the Graveyard. This is from r/no sleep by an author called Stephen Jenkins. Every day as I drove my son to school, we passed a cemetery. On the edge of the cemetery was a statue of a smiling boy facing the road. The statue's hand was outstretched, as if it were waving at cars. Every time we drove by, we would wave back at the boy. It became kind of a morning tradition, until it waved back. "Wave to the boy, Daddy," my son would say as we passed. As I did, my son would always smile and laugh. Some mornings, we turned our morning wave into a game of rock, paper, scissors. The statue would always pick paper, and we laughed when we won. That, though, all one morning. As we drove past the cemetery, my son had his head buried deep inside his tablet, playing some kind of game. As we got close to the cemetery, the traffic started to slow down. "Charlie, don't forget to wave at the boy." Without lifting his eyes from the screen, he shook his hand at the frozen boy. Traffic came to a stop, and I looked at my son playing on his tablet. God, growing up so fast. Soon I will be driving him to college. I looked at the statue of the boy and wondered, will we still wave at you when we go to college? I raised my hand to play rock, paper, scissors. As I shot scissors, I couldn't believe my eyes. I lost. Before I could take in what had just happened, the sound of a car horn came blasting from behind me. The road was clear to move. I panicked and hit the gas. Was I starting to lose my mind? Did I really just lose a game of rock, paper, scissors to a statue? I asked my son, Did you see the statue move, Charlie? He slowly took his eyes away from his tablet and sighed. Don't be silly, Daddy. Statues can't move. He then went back to his game. I smiled and looked back at the road. Yeah, you're right, buddy. I'm only messing with you. When we arrived at school, he jumped out of the car. I thought to myself, I need to get some more sleep. Starting to see things, for Christ's sake. That evening, when I picked up Charlie, he got in the car and told me, my legs hurt. I asked him if he was playing any sports that day. He then listed so many sports. Just hearing them made me want to lie down. Well, of course your legs hurt. You're tired. That's what happens when you play too much sports. Just relax tonight, and in a couple of days, you'll be just fine. But for the next week, he kept saying his legs ached. He complained so much that we took him to the doctors to get it checked out. His skin is so hard and his muscles, they shouldn't be this large and thick, the man in the white coat said as he poked and prodded him. They took scans and ran tests. Finally, after he typed everything into the computer, he came back with one diagnosis. It appears your son has hypertonia. Nasty thing. His central nervous system is damaged. His muscles are much tighter and harder than a normal child of his age. He is going to need medication and occupational therapy. Now, at this moment, with the correct treatment, he should be able to live a fairly normal life. It's unlikely he'll grow up to become an athlete, but he can still live a perfectly normal life if we maintain it correctly. But he is likely going to experience some level of pain for the rest of his life. As I drove home, I wasn't sure what to think. My poor, my poor son was going to be in pain for the rest of his life. I kept trying to try myself. It could have been worse. Thousands of parents every year walk into doctors' offices and hear far worse news than this. As we drove past the cemetery, something caught my eye. The statue's arm. Was it always that high before? Dad, can I still play football? My mind went back to my son. Of course you can still play football, son. We just have to make sure that we do stretches. The doctor said that you have to take your medicine. Okay, great. He smiled as he looked out the window, not understanding what the rest of his life was going to look like. Over the next few weeks, he started going to occupational therapy, but his muscles didn't get any better. If anything, they started getting worse, and his skin started to lose its joyful color and turned pale. We took him to doctor after doctor, but no one could understand. One of the worst cases of hypertonia we have seen, they kept saying. His muscles were getting so tight that he could barely even walk. Every step was agony for him. The occupational therapy lessons got worse and worse. They sounded like a torture session. Every massage, every stretch sent tears down his face. His muscles couldn't take it anymore. Eventually, he had to use a wheelchair to get around. At first, he loved his electric chair, racing his friends at school in it, but it didn't take him long to see that this was a prison. Day by day, he slowly got worse. A year after the first diagnosis, we heard those words no parent wants to hear. There's nothing more we can do for him. All we can do is try to manage the pain. His muscles were so tight he could barely breathe. A week after, the doctor wrote him off. We were driving to see a specialist. There was a trial in Europe that could maybe save his life. As we went past the statue for the final time, my son used whatever little strength he had to talk. Wave at the statue, he gingerly said, using the might of a lion to raise his arm. I looked at the statue, trying not to burst into tears, and my heart stopped. The statue's smile got bigger as it jumped from its stand. It waved at us and ran down the road, its skin turning from its normal grey to a healthy pink. Did you see that, Charlie? The statue, it moved. My son didn't reply. He was frozen. His skin was grey, and the life had left his eyes. I rushed him to the hospital, hoping it wasn't too late to save him, but it was too late. He was gone. I told the doctors about the statue, but no one believes me. I don't know how, but it stole my son's life. They all think I have depression, but I know what I saw. I write this message as a warning to other parents. Never let your children wave at a statue. You never know when it's going to wave back. Oh, no, that's just a sad one. I mean, it creepy, yes, but that's just upsetting. Like how is he going to live with that for the rest of his life? And what's this statue doing now? Is the statue now his son, or like has it adopted his personality as well, or is it just stolen his life? It's interesting. This next story is called I Think We Brought Something Home from the Park That Night. It's by r/slash no sleep by an author called Safe to Crazy. My friend and I have a habit of going to this park late at night. It isn't some small neighborhood park either. It's huge. There's a long walking and biking trail that wraps around the area, and a massive river running through the middle. During the day, it's actually pretty nice. Families walk their dogs, people ride bikes, and kids play near the water. At night, though, it feels totally different. The night this happened, it was pitch black. There weren't lights near where we were sitting. The only light came from our phones and the moon reflecting off the river. The water looked almost white, like someone had poured milk across the surface. Everything else around us was swallowed by darkness. We were sitting on our usual bench beside the river, smoking, talking about random things, and scrolling through our phones after we ran out of things to do. After a while, I looked around and realized just how dark it really was. I remember turning to my friend and asking, "Do you think there could be people watching us right now?" He looked up from his phone. What do you mean? I don't know. It's just really dark. What if someone's standing out there somewhere and we can't see him? Or ghosts or something? He laughed. Nah, it's too dark for anyone to see us, and ghosts aren't real. I immediately told him not to say that. Don't jinx us. That only made him laugh harder. Beside our bench was a tree with long branches hanging down. The leaves nearly brushed against us whenever the wind picked up. My friend stood up and started snapping and hanging branches around. No ghost can touch me, he said while laughing. I told him to stop being stupid. Instead, he kept going. Eventually, I joined him. We were both standing there like idiots, smacking the leaves around and joking about. Looking back, I really wish we hadn't. About 20 minutes later, we decided to call it a night and head home. Nothing felt strange at first. We got into his car and started driving out of the park. The exit road is a long stretch surrounded by trees with barely any traffic at night. That's when we heard it. Bang! A violent crash came from the trunk. Not a little rattle, not something shifting around. It sounded like someone had punched the inside of the trunk as hard as they could. I looked over at my friend and laughed nervously. Very funny. He looked genuinely confused. What? The trunk. His expression changed instantly. I swear to God, that wasn't me. The chills that went through my body were immediate. Neither of us said a word for several seconds. Then another thought hit both of us at the same time. What if someone actually was in there? We pulled over onto the side of the road. My friend kept a baseball bat in his car, so he grabbed it and slowly walked around to the trunk. I stayed a few steps behind him. I could hear my own heartbeat. He unlocked it and lifted it open. Nothing. The trunk was completely empty. No bags, no loose objects, nothing that could have made that sound. We just stood there, staring into it. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it had to be something mechanical. Maybe something underneath the car. Maybe we hit a bump. Neither of us actually believed that, but it was better than having no explanation. Eventually, he drove me back to his house where my own car was parked. I got in my car and started driving home. At first, I was just trying not to think about the trunk. Then I stopped at an intersection for a few minutes from my house. That's when I saw her, an old woman standing on the footpath. She was holding one of those walkers with a built in seat that elderly people use. She wore a long grey coat that hung almost to her ankles, dark shoes, and a beige headscarf wrapped tightly around her head. Her back was badly hunched. She wasn't moving, just standing there. I remember thinking it was strange seeing somebody that old outside alone at nearly 11 o'clock at night. The traffic lights changed when I drove off. A few minutes later, I glanced out my passenger window. My stomach dropped. The same woman was standing there. The exact same woman. Same coat, same headscarf, same walkers, same hunched posture. I immediately started trying to explain it away. Maybe it was just another old lady. Maybe I'd mistaken her for someone else. Maybe she crossed through some side street and gotten ahead of me somehow. But even as I thought those things, I knew none of them made sense. There was no possible way she could have gotten ahead of me. I was driving. She could barely stand upright. My hands started shaking on the steering wheel. I kept checking my mirrors. I don't know why. I just felt like something was wrong. Really wrong. I sped up. I just wanted to get home. About a minute later, I approached a roundabout less than a street away from my house. As my headlights swept across it, I felt hair on my body stand up. She was there again, standing beside the roundabout, waiting, the exact same woman. This time, she wasn't looking down, she was looking directly at me. I still remember her face, the wrinkles, the pale skin, and the smile. It wasn't a normal smile, it was too wide, too deliberate. She knew something I didn't, and for a second I genuinely couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, my vision started tunneling. Every instinct in my body was screaming that I needed to get away from her. I floored the accelerator. I don't even remember the drive home after that. I only remember pulling into my driveway and practically falling out of the car. I ran inside, locked every door, and sprinted to my room. The rest of the night, staring at my bedroom door, every little noise made me jump, every shadow looked wrong. I don't remember falling asleep, I just remember waking up the next morning exhausted. I tried to come up with explanations ever since. Maybe the noise in the trunk was unrelated. Maybe the old woman was a coincidence, and maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me. But here's the part that still bothers me. The next day, I called my friend and told him about the old woman. I hadn't even finished my story before he interrupted me. His voice sounded nervous. He asked me one question. Was she wearing a grey coat and a beige headscarf? I never told him what she was wearing. To this day, neither of us will talk about what happened after we slapped those branches, and neither of us have ever gone back to that park. Ooh, oh, that's creepy. It's like it wasn't too long, it was kind of a nice short one, but oh, definitely unsettling. I got slight chills toward the end of that one. Anyways, this next story is called The Second Gunshot. It's from r slash no sleep by a user called farchoice6642. I shouldn't be alive after what happened to me last winter. My cabin sat on 50 acres of ground where my bison were strewn around like dark rocks in the snow. The only phone I had was the phone house, located on the first floor of the house next to the stairs, and it used an antenna on top of the house to send and receive messages, but with my luck, it was currently broken. I didn't know how, as there was no recent storms, and it looked torn off. It was in the middle of winter. Temperatures regularly reached far below freezing. I had 2 days of food left if I rationed them, less if I didn't. With around 2 to 3 months left of winter. I hadn't gone hunting all winter due to my rations, and the bison were too young to butcher and get a good amount of food. So I might as well go hunting. There were moose, wild bison, caribou, and small mammals thriving during this time of year. I took a day to prepare, setting up a perch in the middle of the woods by the river, and other basic preparations. While I was setting up the perch, the wind just seemed off, almost as if it was warning me somehow. I left at first light, planning to return at sundown. I hiked a few miles to the perch, though the clearing where the bison sat, all together facing the tree line. Usually they were in groups of two and three. I went a few miles into the forest, reached the perch, and climbed up. The forest felt wrong today, almost hungry. I waited around half an hour before I saw anything. A moose drinking out of the river. It had beautiful antlers. I aimed my rifle at it and fired. The moose dropped to the ground, and everything went silent. No wind, no birds, nothing. It seemed even the river became silent. Then the gunshot sound happened again. Not from my gun, but from deeper in the forest. The sound was deeper and a fraction of a second too long. Every part of my body told me to leave and never come back, but I needed food, and 2 days of food was right in front of me. I climbed down the ladder, turning my back for around 30 seconds. When I turned back, the moose was gone, a small puddle of blood where it had originally fallen. No tracks, no drag marks, just undisturbed snow. I ran home, not caring about anything else at this point. As I ran through the clearing, the bison ignored me, still staring at the tree line. I entered the cabin and locked all the doors. I needed to go back. It had been 1 day since the moose incident. I planned on going back to the perch, and if anything unusual happened, to come back and butcher a bison. The world seemed to go silent when I entered the forest. I reached my perch and I climbed up. I saw a moose, and I swear on my life it was the same moose. Same beautiful antlers. No, it couldn't be. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking everything and it was a different moose, but then it slowly turned its head towards me, unblinking, watching. I raised my rifle and fired. My bullet flew through where the moose used to be and hit a tree. The moose was gone. I was done. I decided to butcher a few bison and wait out the winter. As I entered the clearing, my stomach dropped. All the bison were dead, all strewn across the clearing, blood everywhere. The throats of the bison were torn open, but not from a single pound of meat was missing. I don't think I'm the only intelligent one out here. I didn't know what to do. I had no food left and no bison left. I thought of collecting their remains and eating those, but when I went out, the clearing was empty. Even the blood was gone. Fa- Farming? It was the middle of the winter. Escape? I'd planned to stay there throughout the winter and have a friend pick me up. Call for help? The antenna was broken. I needed to go hunting. I didn't want to. I knew it was stupid, but at this point I had no other options. I entered the forest. The silence didn't shock me anymore. I looked around for hours. Nothing. I realized something. Whatever this thing was didn't want to kill me. It wanted me to starve. Oh, okay, that's unfortunate. But that's like a whole new level of dangerous. Like, instead of just trying to kill you, it wants you to suffer. That's horrible, actually. Jesus Christ. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time I have for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video and, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and you'd be massively helping out me and the channel. And one last thing before I go, I have a Twitch account. that I have just created where you can see me play other games and do other different types of content over there. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in watching, please go over there, check it out, give me a follow. It's it's just a little it's just another different side to me and what I enjoy doing on this, well, what I enjoy doing in general. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, please go check it out. The link will be in the description, and also the Twitch account name will be on screen now. So go ahead, feel free and give that a follow. I'm gonna stop being a broken record now, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, if you do enjoy this type of content, um, please leave a like. It goes a long way. And also, just for the final time, once again, thank you guys so much for all the love and support that you guys showed on my last video. It really means a lot to me. I wasn't too confident in my first video, but after seeing all the love and support that you guys showed, um, this is the part two. So, with that being said, for the final and the last time for today, I will see you guys next time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Right, see ya.